The word wait fell like a heavy stone in the middle of the immense, silent glass office. Megan, who had already risen from her chair to leave, thoroughly convinced that the interview had ended in a miserable failure, stood absolutely frozen, her worn purse clutched tightly against her chest. The man sitting behind the expansive mahogany desk, the billionaire owner of this entire towering Chicago skyscraper, had his eyes locked onto her single-sheet resume as if he were reading a ghost story. He spoke her full name aloud, drawing out the syllables very slowly, and something deep within his face completely unraveled. Megan recognized him in that very same fraction of a second, even though 15 long years had passed. The scrawny, hopeful teenager from their impoverished neighborhood had somehow transformed into this imposing figure wearing an impeccable, tailor-made suit. It was, without a doubt, Daniel Sullivan. The boy she had fallen so deeply in love with at 17. The boy who had slipped away one freezing dawn without a single word of goodbye, vanishing the moment life opened a miraculous door for him. Her weary heart gave a violent lurch, but Megan had learned from an unforgiving world exactly how to bury her feelings deep inside. She straightened her spine, hardened her gaze, and decided in a split second that she would not give him the satisfaction of knowing she recognized him. "Excuse me," she said with a perfectly measured, polite coldness. "Is there something else you require, Mr. Sullivan?" Daniel slowly lifted his gaze and looked her straight in the eyes, searching for any tiny spark of recognition. But Megan held his intense stare without blinking, acting as though the name meant absolutely nothing to her. "Your name?" he finally whispered, his voice hoarse and trembling slightly. "Where are you originally from?" Megan kept her chin high. "From many different places. A person tends to move around quite a bit when they don't have enough money to stay anywhere permanently. I came here solely for the evening cleaning position, Mr. Sullivan. If you no longer need me, I really must be going. I left my young son with a neighbor." The sudden mention of a son struck Daniel like a physical blow. Megan quickly gathered her documents, praying her hands would not betray her by shaking. She was 32 years old, with a 5-year-old boy waiting for her in a cramped rented room and exactly $80 left in her wallet. She desperately needed this job, but she refused to let him recognize her. She would never accept charity born of pity from the man who had abandoned her. "Please, just sit down," Daniel requested. This time, it sounded remarkably like a desperate plea. She hesitated, but the fiercely pragmatic part of her brain reminded her of the rent due on Friday. She lowered herself onto the edge of the chair, tense as a coiled wire. "I will be completely honest with you," Daniel murmured, setting her resume down with strange, delicate care. "Your background is not at all what we look for in the maintenance department. You are vastly overqualified. Why would a woman like you seek a job cleaning floors?" "Because I need to work, sir," she answered with a fierce dignity. "There is no shame in cleaning. The only shame belongs to the person who looks down on it. If the job is yours to give it to me, but please refrain from asking irrelevant questions." A heavy silence stretched between them. Daniel stared at her with a mixture of profound astonishment and deep sorrow. He knew exactly who she was, he was simply waiting for her to drop her guard. But Megan firmly pressed her lips together. "The position is yours," Daniel finally said in a low, defeated voice. "You start on Monday." Megan gave a curt nod, stood up, and walked toward the heavy glass door. Just before she exited, she heard his voice one last time, completely shattered. "Megan." It was spoken exactly the way one says the name of someone they never stopped loving. She paused for a single heartbeat, her hand gripping the cold metal handle, before stepping out into the hallway without turning around. The silent war and unspoken kindness. The ensuing weeks rapidly devolved into a quiet war of attrition. Megan arrived punctually in her gray uniform, executing her tasks with meticulous perfection. Daniel, conversely, managed to invent 100 different excuses to cross her path, showing up in random hallways or visiting the cafeteria when she was wiping down tables. Every single time he offered her a soft good evening, she would respond with a robotic, "Good evening, sir," building the wall just a little bit higher. But Daniel subtly shifted his strategy, quietly ensuring her life was made easier without ever asking for credit. He discreetly manipulated the schedule so she received the shifts most convenient for a single mother and mandated that her wages be paid exactly on time. Whenever he caught her struggling with a heavy industrial bucket, he would instantly offer assistance. Even though she stubbornly rejected his help every time, Daniel saw past her frosty exterior. He recognized that her refusals were born of sheer fear, the fear of letting herself soften. The fragile equilibrium between them finally shattered from a direction Megan had never anticipated, her young son. One stormy afternoon, a neighbor's medical emergency forced Megan to smuggle 5-year-old Isaac into the massive skyscraper, settling him in a remote supply closet with a box of crayons. But little boys are naturally curious. While Megan was desperately scrubbing a distant corridor, Isaac wandered out, his tiny sneakers carrying him straight into the luxurious executive wing. It was Daniel who discovered him. Stepping out of a late board meeting, he stopped dead in his tracks at the sight of the small child staring at the glittering Chicago skyline. Daniel crouched down in his expensive suit to meet the boy at eye level and gently asked his name. Isaac honestly confessed that he was waiting for his mommy who cleaned the floors, and pleaded with the man not to tell on him because his mommy would get in terrible trouble. That innocent, protective instinct completely melted Daniel's heart. He stayed sitting on the carpet talking with the boy for a long time, listening as Isaac explained how hard his mother worked and how he sometimes heard her crying softly in the dark. When Megan finally came sprinting down the hallway, her chest heaving with sheer panic, she expected to be fired on the spot. Finding Isaac sitting comfortably on the lush carpet, drawing pictures alongside the billionaire owner of the company nearly stopped her heart. She immediately launched into a frantic, trembling apology. But Daniel simply stood up, stopped her with a calm gesture, and quietly added that she was doing an incredibly beautiful job raising such a wonderful son. Megan was completely at a loss for words. A massive, immovable stone inside her chest had finally shifted. Her armor was built to repel a man who wanted to hurt her. It was entirely defenseless against a man who was genuinely kind to her son. The threat and the truth. The fragile peace they had slowly begun to build was abruptly threatened by a massive storm brewing in Daniel's corporate world, bearing the name of Rachel Sterling. Rachel was a 70-year-old aristocratic woman, the majority shareholder of the board, and Daniel's formidable mentor. When whispers reached her that her protégé was becoming involved with a cleaning woman, Rachel methodically prepared to cut the romance out by the roots. Rachel summoned Megan to a lavish corner office under the guise of an administrative review. Speaking with polished, condescending cruelty, Rachel produced a sleek leather checkbook and offered Megan an absolutely staggering amount of money, enough to change her and Isaac's lives forever. The only condition was that she resign immediately and vanish from Chicago completely. Megan stood frozen, her face burning with a profound, suffocating humiliation. For one agonizing second, staring at a check that could guarantee her son's future, the overwhelming fear almost made her take the money and run. But then her unyielding backbone snapped sharply into place. Megan looked the wealthy socialite dead in the eye, and with a voice of pure steel, firmly declared that she was not an object for sale. She told Rachel that she refused the money because she earned her keep with her hands and her head held high. If you truly believe that a person's worth is dictated solely by the size of their stock portfolio, Megan added proudly, then it is the billionaire who is truly impoverished. Megan marched out of the opulent office, leaving Rachel thoroughly stunned. But internally, Megan was completely broken. Terrified that Rachel was right, she pushed Daniel away, hiding behind a cold, defensive silence. Everything changed when Isaac sadly asked his mother if Daniel had stopped visiting because of something he had done wrong. Realizing her fear was now hurting her son, Megan went to Daniel intending to resign, but instead confessed the entire humiliation of Rachel's bribe. Rather than walking away, Daniel fiercely defended her. He confronted Rachel directly before the board of directors, declaring that no position or fortune was worth losing the woman he loved. His unwavering loyalty finally gave Megan something she had never known, a man willing to stand beside her and protect her without hesitation. In the days that followed, Daniel finally found the courage to speak the words he had been holding back for weeks. He told her, with tears in his eyes, that he desperately needed to apologize for the cowardly way he had vanished 15 years ago. He explained that at 17, he hadn't left because of greed, but because he was a terrified, dirt-poor kid who firmly believed that if he stayed, he would only drag her down into a lifetime of misery and starvation alongside him. Megan listened with a massive lump in her throat, feeling the comforting narrative of the cruel villain completely shatter into dust. Realizing that his departure hadn't been an act of cruelty, but a misguided sacrifice, lifted a crushing weight from her soul. Tears finally welled up in her eyes. She told him that while she appreciated the truth, 15 years was a lifetime, and she didn't know if her battered heart had any capacity left to trust a man again. Daniel simply nodded and gently told her that he wasn't asking for her immediate trust. He was only asking for the chance to stay, to prove through his actions, day after day, that the frightened boy who ran away was not the man standing before her now. Slowly, Megan found the courage to trust again. Months later, Daniel proposed on the same Chicago rooftop where they had once dreamed together as teenagers. They celebrated a simple wedding, surrounded by the people who truly loved them. After exchanging vows, Daniel crouched down, looked into young Isaac's big eyes, and asked for his official permission to adopt him and become his father forever. Looking back, Megan realized that while life's hardships had built heavy walls around her heart, true healing came from finding someone who chose patience, loyalty, and love every single day. Before you go, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe true love deserves a second chance, even after years of heartbreak? Let us know in the comments below. I read every one of them. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in hope and forgiveness, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories that remind us kindness, love, and second chances still exist. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.